everyone. Happy Monday morning. I am Carol Williams, and this is another Monday morning edition of Beyond the Soundbite. This is where I talk about what's going on in the immigration world, generally what's happened in the past week or so that I think y'all might find fairly interesting. So again, I'm Carol Williams with Williams Immigration, and this is Beyond the Soundbite. So let's dive right in. It's immigration, it's the United States, there's a lot going on in immigration. So the first thing I want to talk about is the current travel suspensions that were initiated by the White House. Those travel suspensions have in fact been extended. Now we've got guidance from the Department of State, which, as you know, if you have been hanging out with me every Monday morning, the Department of State oversees the U.S. consulates outside of the United States. So now we have guidance from the consulates outside of the United States saying that, of course, they are going to follow the proclamation or follow the extension of the White House proclamation. So that means that H-1Bs, H-2Bs, L1As and L1Bs, as well as J1s, are not going to be able to get new visas at the consulates. And for our folks in J1, those are going to be our interns, our trainees, teachers, camp counselors, au pairs, and individuals coming in for summer work travel. So not only does that affect the principal applicants in these statuses, it also affects their dependents. So the dependents, the spouses, and the children under 21 will also not be able to obtain their H4, L2, and J2 visas respectively. So if you thought you were going to kind of weasel into the consulate before the Department of State had a chance to sort of take a look at their policies, that was not going to happen. They are absolutely going to follow the White House proclamation as we expected. But now they've just actually given written clarification on that. And again, that was extended until March 31st. So we will see what happens with President-elect Biden when he is sworn in at the end of this month, if he chooses to maintain this particular White House proclamation, or whether that will be something that he tackles fairly early on in his administration. The next thing I have for you all is that anyone traveling to the US from the UK must have a negative COVID test before they will be allowed to board a plane and come into the US. This is a CDC mandate because of the change in the virus over in the UK, and that mandate is currently in effect until March 26th of this year. So if you are looking to fly into the US and you are coming from the UK, keep in mind that you will need a negative COVID test. This will be, or should be rather, enforced at the airports in the UK. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to drop me a question in the comments, or you can certainly call my office. Back to our lovely Department of State and the consulates. The consulates are working. Some of them, however, are still closed. So what does that mean for you? It means that we all need to be a little bit patient. The consulates are mandated to look at the local country conditions, any sort of local mandates in the cities where they are located, as well as reaching back and listening to and touching base early and often with the Department of State. So the consulates have sort of a lot of moving parts that they need to consider in terms of whether or not they're going to open their doors, and how many people they can logistically service and still keep people safe. Their number one goal is to keep people safe. So what they're doing now is some of them are opening slowly, some of them are currently opening, but they are definitely processing fewer applications because at the consulate, people have to appear in person. So they are really taking it slowly. They are prioritizing US citizen services. And after US citizen services, they are then prioritizing everything else, and that includes visa services. So consulates are doing the best that they can. They are working through true emergencies to the best of their ability. So I get this question at least twice a day, is the consulate opening? Are they processing cases? Some cases, in fact, are being processed. I had a client fly into the US this past weekend who was processed at a consulate overseas. So it is happening, but it's happening very, very slowly, certainly slower than, 2 years ago. So for that, we just have to be patient and really understand that they are they need to look at several different things before they just, open their doors and are back full steam ahead with us. Now, some good news coming out of our consulates. They have been given a little bit of flexibility. So if you are applying for a non-immigrant employment-based visa, and you are essentially applying for the same visa category that has previously been expired within the last 24 months, in some cases, the consulates are waiving the interview. That is so that they can limit the number of people that are coming into the building. So I want to caution you, this is not a free-for-all. It is not a blanket policy. It will be done on a case-by-case basis. But the consular officers do have this flexibility. And right now they have been granted this extended kind of discretionary flexibility until March 31st of this year. So we will see. We will see how this works out. I think if this is good news, so we will see what we see, and we will see how many they actually process this way, and hopefully they'll give us a few more details in terms of how they're making their decisions. The Department of State has also said that the visa fees are not going to go up. They're going to hold steady. They're thinking at least until September 30th. So we'll see what happens there. That is also good news. Now, let's jump back into the United States, back over to USCIS and what they're doing. The H-1B, I've been talking about the H-1B with y'all for quite some time. The H-1B is always hot news just before the cap season kind of fully gets heated up, which is right about now. And so this year is looking like it's not going to be any different. So we just had a rule published on January 8th, so only a couple of days ago, that will prioritize higher wages in the H-1B lottery. So that rule will be effective March 9 of this year. So it will be effective for this current cap season. That's what we're seeing. And the reason the White House did this, their stated reason, was that they wanted to essentially incentivize employers to pay higher wages and to use the H-1B application process and the H-1B visa category for some higher end positions. And that is part of their mission to make sure and protect U.S. workers, to make sure that U.S. workers were not competing with individuals coming from overseas. That was, that's why the White House has really pushed this particular rule. So that rule was in fact finalized and published January 8th. It will become effective March 9, 60 days after publication. So that is something that we are going to be looking very closely at, and we're going to be looking at USCIS to give us some more in the weeds details about how they will be running the lottery. And whether that will change what we have to do on our end in order to enter our clients into the lottery. We are also looking at USCIS. They are under a hiring freeze for the majority of their workforce, has really been under this hiring freeze since February of last year. And the agency, as I've talked about before, as you've heard in the news, they were undergoing some financial struggles. They went to Congress middle of last year and said, hey, listen, we just don't have enough money. We're a fee-based agency. We operate based on the fees that we get from applications. So Congress, in fact, did not give them the $1.2 billion that they were requesting. They were, however, able to raise the premium processing fee. So that fee was raised. The other fees have not been increased. Those are currently sitting in litigation. So the agency is now continues to be under a hiring freeze. It appears as though they were told that this hiring freeze would last at least until March. Again, that bleeds into President-elect Biden's administration. So we will see if that is something that he chooses to lift. We will see. I believe and predict that the agency is going to use the hiring freeze as a reason for the continued backlogs. We will see. We are seeing backlogs get longer and longer in some cases. So I suspect they feel that they don't have enough individuals to process the incoming cases. So we may be looking at more backlog. So we'll see what happens with that. We'll see if President-elect Biden, and his new administration can help the Immigration Service, out of that backlog. Essentially, and and start to get cases moving. But the Immigration Service, USCIS, is currently under a hiring freeze for the majority of their positions. So we'll have to watch closely and see what happens with that. Probably about a month or so ago, we talked about the current White House administration not wanting undocumented individuals to be counted in the census. And we weren't quite sure whether or not that was going to be an initiative that was going to be finalized before the current White House administration leaves office. So it's looking like that may not actually be finalized. Apparently, last Tuesday, the Department of Justice lawyers let the White House know that they probably wouldn't be able to get that census data to the White House before the beginning of February. So as we know, the current White House administration will change hands over to President-elect Biden, at the end of this month. So if DOJ is unable to get that census data to the White House until February, that would then become under the purview of President-elect Biden. So again, we will have to wait and see how President-elect Biden and his administration chooses to look at undocumented individuals and whether or not they should continue to be counted in the census. The last thing I want to talk about today or this morning with you all are biometrics. So we are seeing a significant delay in the taking of biometrics. We're seeing this delay across the country, and some biometrics are being reused. If someone has had biometrics fairly recently, the Immigration Service is reusing those biometrics in order to help sort through that backlog and get cases moving and get those background checks done. The ASC centers, again, are still looking at limiting the number of people that come into the building because of the COVID-19 virus. So they are really trying to balance getting the biometrics done and keeping everyone healthy, as they should. So as a result of that, some biometrics are being reused. There are no walk-ins to the ASC centers pre-COVID. If we needed to, we could just have a client walk in on a different day than their scheduled appointment. The ASC centers do not want that to happen anymore because, again, they are trying to limit the number of people physically in the building. So just so that we're all aware, CIS has let us know that in the beginning of COVID, around March timeframe, they had to cancel approximately 280,000 biometric appointments across the country. So it is just going to take time. When they reopened the ASC centers, June or July timeframe, it was a very slow reopening, understandably so. But given some of the local health concerns and mandates, some of those ASC centers then had to close again because of the local conditions and the numbers with the virus. So those offices are, reopening again, and they have been reopening, but it's slow going, and it's because of safety measures. So I know that we're all anxious. We want our cases approved, but we've really got to remember and take into consideration that we also want the individuals working at the ASC centers, and we want our clients to be as safe as possible. And that means that we're going to just have to be a teeny bit more patient while we get the biometrics rescheduled and done. So that's really all I have for y'all this morning. Immigration never fails to disappoint with some sort of change or amendment, or it's always sort of a moving target. But I'm here to help walk you through that. I am Carol Williams with Williams Immigration. This is Beyond the Soundbite. If you have found this helpful, please feel free to click like and click share. If you would like to be added to my newsletter, you can feel free to drop me an email, drop me a comment with your email address. Or if you have a question, feel free to ask that in the comments or send me an email, and I'm more than happy to respond. Again, this is Carol Williams with Beyond the Soundbite. Have a wonderful rest of your Monday and a great week. And I will be back here again bright and early Monday morning. Bye.